Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Myths and Stuff, the podcast where I, Liesel, tell you, listener, all about Greek mythology. I just wanted to say sorry that my posting schedule has been a little bit inconsistent. I am a high school student, I don't have all the time in the world, and I'm the only person working on this podcast. So yeah, it's going to be a little inconsistent, but I will try my best to at least get an episode out every 2 weeks. Now on to the actual content of this episode. This week is going to be actually about two gods because as much as I love them both equally and they are fantastic, they are twins and kind of polar opposites, so I thought it would be fitting to put them in an episode together. Now, without further ado, on to this week's episode of Myths and Stuff. Apollo and Artemis, the coolest siblings ever. Apollo and Artemis' story, of course, starts with their birth. Their father, Zeus, because of course it's him again, falls in love with the titan of motherhood, Leto. Well, they get busy, and Leto becomes pregnant with twins. When Hera finds this out, she gets incredibly angry. She is Zeus's wife, after all, and how dare he cheat on her? Instead of punishing Zeus, she gets mad at Leto for consenting, and she orders all lands to deny her shelter should she ask. I understand why Hera is angry at Leto, but I really wish that sometimes she would take out her anger on Zeus, not the woman he cheats with. I understand that Leto consented and everything, but what about the women that don't? She takes out her anger on the woman regardless if they wanted to be in the relationship with Zeus, which is what bothers me. Anyways, back to the myth. Leto searches and searches for a place where she can rest, and finally she finds an island that is not connected to the sea floor. Because it's not connected to any landmass, it is not considered land, because of Greek mythology logic, and therefore Leto is allowed to rest and give birth there. When she finally goes into labor, Hera makes it last days as one last punishment from her. Finally, though, Leto gives birth. She first mothers Artemis, goddess of the moon, chastity, and the hunt. After Artemis is born, apparently she is then able to help her mother give birth to her twin brother Apollo. Yes, you heard that right. Artemis quite literally helps birth her twin brother immediately after being born. Girl boss behavior, honestly. Apollo is the god of a lot of things, including music, archery, prophecy, medicine, plague, and the sun. Time for the exciting part of the episode, the part where I actually get to tell you some myths instead of just a birth story. We will be starting off with the myth of Actaeon and Artemis. Actaeon was a hunter hunting deep in the woods when he got separated from his hunting party. Why exactly he was separated is unknown, but the important thing is that when he was wandering around hunting, he stumbled across the goddess Artemis bathing in a river. Actaeon, instead of doing the polite thing and leaving, he stared at her in awe of her beauty. He was a creep, basically. When Artemis finally caught him looking, she was angry, which she had every right to be. Artemis cursed him. The next time Actaeon dared to speak a word, he would immediately be transformed into a stag. Actaeon, being not so bright in the head, spoke immediately after being cursed. His hunting party had called out looking for him, and Actaeon had responded. At once, he turned into the antlered animal and he ran through the forest, confused as to why he felt different. After a while of running, he stumbled his way to a creek, and he looked at his reflection in the water, and he saw a stag looking back at him. He was distraught. He turned his head to the sky to ask Olympus for help, but none of the gods wanted to help him. Instead, his hunting dogs found Actaeon, and they tore him to shreds. And let that, everyone, be a lesson as to why you should not be creepy and look at women when they obviously do not wish to be stared at. Next, on to the myth of Orion. Orion was a giant and the son of Uriel and Poseidon, or others, depending on the version. He was an incredible hunter. Orion was considered one of the best of the best. He could also, because of his father, Poseidon, in most myths, could walk on water, which was kind of cool. One day, Orion was walking on water, as one does, and stumbled upon the island of Chios, where he met Merope. Merope was beautiful, and unfortunately, women in Greek mythology who meet heroes don't always have the best fortune. Orion saw Merope and he raped her. I love Greek mythology, but many, if not most, myths have sexual assault in them, and it is a reflection of what life was like for a woman back then. When Merope's father, the ruler of Chios, King Oinoipion, which I am definitely butchering, found out about this, he was angry, which is completely fair. He blinded Orion as punishment for what he did to his daughter and cast him away from the island. Orion sulked around the entire world because he could walk on water. Drowning wasn't really an issue for him. Eventually, though, Orion found the island of Lemnos, where Hephaestus had his famous forge. Orion went to Hephaestus and asked him if he could help cure his blindness. Hephaestus told him to find Helios, the sun god, and that he could help him. Hephaestus then gave Orion his servant, Cadilion, who sat on Orion's shoulders, because again, Orion's a giant, and guided him to Helios, who healed him right up. Orion went back to Chios to exact his revenge on Oinoipion, but the king hid from Orion and escaped his wrath. After Orion got his sight restored, he went to the island Crete and became one of the only men to join Artemis's hunt. Artemis allowed him to join because of how incredibly talented he was. Some myths say that she fell in love with him, but I choose to ignore those because they're honestly stupid. Women do not need men to love, and she was one of the only virgin goddesses, and to say that she fell in love is really, really, really stupid. Anyway, while hunting with Artemis, Orion bragged that he could, and was going to, kill every animal on the planet, because of course. Gaia heard this and was not too happy, so she sent a giant scorpion to kill him. And despite what Orion thought, the scorpion was able to kill him. After this, Artemis was very upset, so she asked Zeus to put him into the stars as a constellation, and he agreed, also putting the scorpion with him. Ever since then, you can still see Orion in the stars, fighting his final battle. Now, on to Apollo and his best friend. What, they were completely platonic. I have no idea what you're talking about. Hyacinthus lived in Sparta and was described as incredibly good-looking. We don't know much about how Apollo and him met, but we do know that they were inseparable. They were in love. They were best bros. One day, as they were hanging out together like best bros do, they decided to play a game of quoit, which I think is basically like ancient ultimate frisbee. And when Apollo threw his discus, it went high into the sky, and Hyacinthus chased after it with the intent to catch it. But Hyacinthus didn't quite catch it. Instead, it hit him in the head, killing him. Apollo was distraught. He tried his best, but even the god of healing couldn't save Hyacinthus, and Apollo had to live with the guilt of killing him for forever. Another telling of the story states that Zephyrus, the west wind, was also in love with Hyacinthus, or some would say, wanted to be Hyacinthus's best friend, and was jealous of Apollo and his relationship. So, he redirected the discus to hit and kill Hyacinthus. Kind of a weird way to ask someone out, but to each their own, I guess. If you see statues or any representation of Apollo, chances are he will be shown with the lyre. But the lyre wasn't originally made by Apollo, but Hermes. When Hermes, god of thieves and much more, was a young boy, he decided to steal his half-brother's cattle, which was a big no-no in ancient Greece. He took Apollo's cows to a nearby cave to hide them, and in the cave he found a tortoise. Hermes, being slightly psychotic, decided to kill the tortoise, hollow its shell out, and lace it with one of Apollo's cow's intestines to make the musical instrument the lyre. Weird, but okay. Apollo eventually found Hermes with his cattle and demanded that he return them. Hermes pretended to be innocent, so Apollo went to Zeus, who had seen everything from Olympus, and he told Hermes to return Apollo's cattle. That's when Hermes started to play the lyre, and Apollo, being the god of music, fell in love. He told Hermes he could keep his cows if he gave him the lyre. Hermes agreed, and ever since, Apollo has been pictured with the lyre at his side. On to another staple of Apollo, the laurel tree. One day, Apollo saw Eros stringing his bow, Eros is more commonly known as his Roman counterpart, Cupid, and made fun of him. Apollo told him the weapon was made for a man in hunting and not love. Eros was angry at Apollo for saying this and wanted revenge for damaging his ego. So Eros took his manly weapon and shot Apollo and a naiad named Daphne with 2 different arrows. The arrow he shot Apollo with was your typical love and infatuation arrow, but the one arrow shot Daphne with was one of hatred, making her reject all sorts of love. Well, when Apollo saw Daphne, thanks to Eros' arrow, he fell madly in love, and Daphne, being shot with a hatred arrow, rejected him. Apollo started to chase Daphne for her attention, like literally ran after her, and Daphne ran away. But they were evenly matched in speed, and Apollo was unable to catch her on his own. Eros attempted to assist Apollo in his chase by urging him on and holding on to Daphne's shoulders, but it didn't work. Daphne was still able to evade Apollo. After a while of chasing, however, Daphne finally made it to her father's, the river god Peneus' territory, the bank of a river. Daphne called out to her father and asked him to help her. He obliged, and all of a sudden, Daphne's skin started to turn to bark, her arms to branches, and her hair to leaves. Her father had turned her into a laurel tree to help her escape Apollo. Apollo was distraught. He clung to her and tried to kiss the trunk, but still her bark shrank away. Despite Daphne obviously not wanting to be with him, Apollo vowed to honor her forever and took her branches to make a wreath for him to wear. Like, dude, take a hint. And that's why Apollo is shown with a laurel wreath in a lot of depictions. And that, everyone, brings this episode of Myths and Stuff to an end. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. As always, please let me know if there is absolutely anything I can do to make it better, more enjoyable, whatever. To talk about the actual myths, I find Orion's myth rather boring. I just don't understand. I just think it's rather boring. And I don't like him. What he did to Merope was unacceptable, and but he's important, like he's famous, so I had to include him. Also, last or 2 weeks ago, I suppose, I was talking about Emily Wilson's translation of the Iliad and how I wasn't able to get it. Well, I finally got my hands on it, and it's so good so far. I love Emily Wilson. She's so great. But yeah, I think that's all I really have for right now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week or 2 weeks from now. Bye.